Hello, and welcome to Adventure One, Exploring Nature as a Teacher for Social Emotional Development and Social Systems Understanding, a webinar that is part of the Minnesota Outdoor and Nature-Based Learning webinar series, a collaboration between the Department of Education and the Department of Children, Youth, and Families. Participants will have an opportunity to explore the ESIPs as a guide for promoting children's progress in the domain of social emotional development and social systems understanding in outdoor and nature-based learning environments. We will also discuss using assessment tools to document child development in these areas. The objectives for this webinar are to understand the benefits of outdoor and nature-based learning for young children based on the research, identify, design, and plan outdoor and nature-based learning activities to promote positive development in the areas of approaches to learning, social emotional development, and social systems understandings for young children aligned to the early childhood indicators of progress. To apply knowledge of assessment tools to evaluate individual student progress towards learning goals and objectives and consider how the tools can be utilized in outdoor nature-based learning opportunities, and to discover resources for implementing outdoor nature-based learning in early childhood programs and schools. The presenters in this webinar include Jenny Hanlon, nature-based early childhood teacher and parent educator, and guest presenters Peter Locast from the Child Development Lab School at the University of Minnesota and Mary Leister from the Child Development Lab School at the University of Minnesota.
Well, I will just say welcome, everybody. You are in Adventure One, Exploring Nature as a Teacher for Social Emotional Development and Social Systems. We are so excited that you joined us tonight. We will be recording this, and we're just going to get started.
Oops, sorry, I'm moving the slide slowly but surely.
All right. Here at MDE, we always like to start out and talk about our 10 Minnesota commitments to equity, and you can read them all there. I think when we think about outdoor learning and working in early learning programs, the commitment to equity that we would really focus on is starting early. We all know that starting early is just very impactful and important, and why we're in early education. And I am going to turn it over to our hosts. I think that you are going to be in for a wonderful training event, and we're excited to have you here, and we'll just get started. So Jenny, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. And Kelly, if you're able to still watch the waiting room, I will keep an eye on the chat after kind of my portion too. But if you catch anything prior to that, as Peter, Maria, and I are going to do quick introductions. After that, I would love it if you could all just put in the chat where you're signing on from tonight. I think that's always kind of fun to see where in Minnesota you are, or if you're coming to us from farther away. I'm Jenny Hanlon. I have been contracted through MDE the past 2 years, I believe, to help create some resources and webinars for the state of Minnesota early childhood teachers focused around nature-based learning. I am currently a parent-child and family educator through Stillwater ECFE. All right, Peter, you want to introduce yourself next?
Yeah, I'm Peter, and I am a teacher, preschool teacher at the University of Minnesota Child Development Laboratory School. It used to be the Shirley G. Moore Laboratory School, and I'm pretty new to teaching outside since I got to be a part of this new program, and I'm really excited to share what I've learned and some strategies that I've had to make outdoor learning reach these ESIPs.
Thank you, Peter.
Hi, my name is Marie Lister, and I also work at the University of Minnesota Child Development Lab School. It's a mouthful, it's fun to say. I've been teaching for about 15 years now, and have been teaching outside as part of my practice, but really moved to mostly outdoors once COVID hit, and that's what our program did. To keep our children at school and safe from COVID. So I've done a lot of learning along the way. I also was on the ESIPs committee that helped write some of these ESIPs. So I'm excited to talk about sort of where I see some of these ESIPs being met through play, children's play outside. Thanks a lot.
Wonderful, thank you. And I feel very, very close at heart to the University of Minnesota Laboratory School, which is where I did my student teaching and had graduated with my degree in child psychology. So I think very fondly of the program and had some opportunities to spend time there since being like a true adult. So before we jump into more of the content, I wanted to make sure that we took the time to do a land acknowledgement. And this is something that let me back up a second. On the MDE website, we have a booklet that we created that is for teachers that are wanting to incorporate more outdoor learning into their practices. And in there, we do talk about how you can do land acknowledgements with even really young children. So like this land acknowledgement is more for us as adult learners, but there are ways that you can do this with young children as well. And it's helpful for us when you're spending time outside to just be able to kind of feel that connection to the land and remember really who had this land first, really. So the land on which we are on in Minnesota is the ancestral home of the Dakota people, original stewards of this region. We recognize that despite efforts to exterminate and then diminish the Dakota, their connection to this land, water, history, and lifeways perseveres today. We pay our respect to their elders past, present, and emerging. A side note, thinking of the lab school, this year they do have a Dakota immersion program there, which is pretty phenomenal, and hopefully will continue to grow as the years go on. So here's our schedule for tonight. When we go through the different developmental areas, we will be moving into breakout rooms for short periods of time for you to have some time to look at and discuss photos that we'll be sharing in there. And then there is some post-work assignment for you to be able to get the CEU. So if you're able to hang on for that at the end, you'll want to hear about that. And hopefully it's something that will be of value to you as you continue your practices. So I'm going to be covering the emotional development part of the ESITs. And hopefully this is, and really what we're doing with each of these webinars, the different adventures is looking at the different categories, the different domains of the ESITs, and then looking at the subcomponents and how we can support those subcomponents through nature-based learning or just outdoors. So we'll be looking at self and emotional awareness, confidence, self-awareness, emotions, and then self-management, managing thinking, managing emotions and behaviors. We keep having people pop on. I think you're getting all of them, Kelly, so I'm sorry. It just keeps popping up for me. I feel responsible. So the first one that I wanted to dive into is exploration. And as I mentioned earlier, my current role is child, parent, and family educator through Stillwater ECFE. And my particular students, besides adult learners, the parents, and sometimes grandparents and foster parents and other caregivers, the majority of my students are actually between brand new babies up to about 3 years old. I do have a few 4 and 5 year olds, but so a lot of my pictures will be really with our very youngest learners. One of the things with exploration with really little ones, you'll see I have mirrors in 3 of these photos actually, and that's a big piece of them kind of being able to see themselves and who they are, but also just kind of giving them a different perspective of the world. It's a great way for them to practice tummy time, which obviously builds into physical development. We also know with all of these, you could probably look and see numerous domains and subcomponents that would be represented here. But as kids are given the opportunity to explore, this little one with the pigtail here looking in the mirror, actually at this moment that I took the shot, she was kind of looking over to where somebody else was. It might have even been me actually that she was looking at through the mirror. But just building that confidence. She was not even walking yet. She had pulled herself up and was feeling pretty big. at that moment. And so just even her ability to move from space to space, and just giving her that opportunity to explore. This little guy over here with the pumpkin, just a lot of that exploration as well. You can see how his mouth is kind of puckered up. He really wanted to taste that pumpkin. I think he did take a couple bites, as would be expected with a little one that age. But again, that's helping him understand the world around him. And then managing thinking. You can see this picture of a teacher looking into the water with this little guy, just that exploration, and him having to manage just kind of his body and space. I'm going to move to the next one. So you'll see with each of my slides up here, I do have the different subcomponents on here. We really wanted to focus on photos for a lot of this because we know that that's such a great way to remember all of what you're seeing. The next one is interactions with living creatures. I know that we might, some of you might have limitations with this, with your programming of what you're allowed to have in class. I currently don't have any classroom pets. However, we do encounter caterpillars outside and water bugs if we're going over by water. These other pictures are from another program where they were baby bunnies were born, this little baby in the little guy's hand, and then this class pet that if you really look closely, look at him managing his emotions there, his I guess it's delayed gratification, like he's really probably wanting to squeeze that rat a lot more, but it's really motivating to want to keep petting the class pet. And so to be able to do that, he is going to hold it softer, and of course having the snuggle of a caring adult can really help support that co-regulation. The picture on the right here with the beekeeper is just another great opportunity for kids to grow in their managing their emotions and behaviors, because if you move a lot when bees are around, something not so great might happen. And so just kind of helping them start to understand that and helping them know that they don't have to be scared of something that is new to them or different to them. One of the things that I've been working on within my program, I should also mention that within my current program, there hasn't been a lot of nature-based learning taking place before I came to it. A little bit here and there, but not as much as I am trying to do. So although I've been working in nature-based classes for a long time, this is kind of, I feel like my new challenge is how to do it in a space that it's not as obvious. We're not connected to a nature center. It's a pretty typical town lot. But the other piece is I tend to have a pretty wide range of ages. I said I might have kids as young as, a couple months old to 3 years old. And so I've been trying to challenge myself by putting out activities that parents and children can, or parents or us can scaffold as the child is interacting with them. And so, sometimes I might have cards out with the activities. Since it's parent-child classes, that works. If it was just the children, I'd skip the cards, and us teachers would be doing that alongside of the kids. And so when you look at this picture right in the middle here with the gourds and the magnifying glasses, there are a lot of different ways that children might interact with those. They might pound them on the table, they might pound them together, they might pick up the magnifying glass and look at it. They might pick up the gourd and walk around with it. And same with the pine cones as well. They might do the sorting as I have set up here, but that might also not be what they're doing. And again, just looking at that managing thinking and exploring the natural materials where they're really having to focus their attention. And we know that young children are more likely to build their attention span by choosing activities that are of interest to them, which will prep them for when they are having to sit for something that is less interesting to them. And again, having a variety of activities out, thinking of that S4.7 chooses from a variety of options within the environment. Instead of just having one nature activity out, I have a variety out that they can look at. And then with the managing thinking, that they have the ability to self-direct within what is out for them. And so one of the things that I'm looking at with my students is how long are they attending to these activities. One of those is to help me understand, are they interested in them, but then just also kind of where's the child at with that, and how could I extend that learning going forward. So I'm often taking notes during class too, or taking notes after. I take a lot of pictures too, because that helps me remember like who was into that. Like here's the picture of that pumpkin kiddo again. He was there a really long time. He wasn't even 1 year old when he was doing that, and he attended to that for quite a long time. One of my personal favorites, risky play and physical challenges. And this one really fits into confidence, and really looking confidence, self-awareness, emotions, and managing thinking. But if you really think of that, that confidence building, because we know how closely connected how children feel about their physical development really carries over to other areas of development and into their confidence. And also, if you look at this picture of the kids here on this vine, which I highly recommend, if you have a cool vine like that in your class, don't hang on it yourself, because I almost wrecked ours last year. This is at another school I was at, because I was a little bigger for it than I should have been. So I don't recommend doing that, but the kids on there are great. And you can just see they're aware of their body and space. Now they might fall. This rock at the bottom, we did move that out of the way. We did start to see that as a hazard. I just want to make note of that because that hadn't been moved when the photo was taken. But even if you look at this middle picture here where the kids are going across on the logs in their cute little squirrel tails, just how much of confidence is taking place there, that self-awareness. You can see the little guy in the yellow rain pants. He's kind of aware that he's getting pretty close to this other one. The one in the pink jacket is trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to move to the next one? And then having to kind of like manage their emotions through all of that too, and manage their thinking. Something about the way these are set up in a circle is extremely regulating to kids. We have, with numerous classes, and again, this is at Tamarack Nature Center, when we have just kind of had some dysregulated days, when we go out there, we'll just see the kids will go in circles and circles and circles, and it totally shifts kind of where they're at. I'm gonna move to the next one here. Sensory experiences. Those of you that are working directly in early childhood programs right now know how very important sensory experiences are, and the wide range that you can provide. Finger painting is just phenomenal for kids. And yes, they get super messy, but that's why we have hoses. That's why we bring buckets of water out to help clean up. And it's just a great way for them to really dive in. You could even use mud instead of paint if you wanted. I have some wheat here. I buy this at a feed mill. Feed store, because when we're done playing with it, after however amount of time you think is appropriate, it can go, you can toss it out into the woods for animals to eat it or bring it to a farm. Different than people food. I don't believe in using people food in classes because it can't be reused after. Clay is something that I wouldn't have thought of to use with such young kids, but one of my new favorite books, which is called The Honeycomb Hypothesis, had recommended it, and it has been really wonderful to be able to see what these little ones are doing with it, and that pushing and pressing. And I've been surprised when we talk about that attending in the managing thinking of how long they will stay with that activity. They might try and put it in their mouth at first, but it tastes so blah that usually they only do it once. And just providing, especially really little ones, opportunities to be barefoot, and having that awareness of their body in space is so incredibly important. Here's another one, finger painting. It was pine needle painting, but of course, many little ones will put down whatever they're painting with and just use their hands. I'm gonna move to the next one here. So what I'm going to do, I am going to go in the chat really quick and put in, actually, I'll do it after. I'm going to put, once you have gone to a breakout room, which you'll be sent to in just a little bit, you're going to click on a link to be able to look at a photo. There's actually four photos on there, but you're just going to look at the first one and talk in your group about the ESIPs, the subcomponents of emotional development that could potentially be supported during the moment that the photo was taken. So give me a second really quick because I need to make the breakout rooms, which hopefully won't take me that long. Here we go. I am going to do, there's 60 people. I'm going to do 12 breakout rooms. I think that sounds about good. We're going to do 7 minutes. And as soon as you get in the breakout room, I will broadcast a message out with the link. So hopefully you'll be able to pull that up. Any questions before we do that? You can unmute yourself if you have any questions. Okay, awesome. So looking at that first photo and deciding which subcomponents of the emotional development domain could be supported in the photo. Okay, should be getting your invite. There you go. I see people hopping in.
Jenny, are you okay if I pause recording while we do breakout rooms?
Yes, that would be great. What I'm doing I'm putting the link here now. If a few of you wanted to check it out, try it out for later, because it will be the same link for the other breakout rooms. Okay, so I'm going to pull this up. I just don't want to waste anybody's time again later. Whoops, I went to the wrong one. Hold on a second. Here we go. So here is the image that we are looking at. And what I'm going to ask, you can either just put, why don't you just put things in the chat? Oh, good. Thank you, Hope, for saying that that works. So of the subcomponents of the emotional development domain, which ones are you seeing kind of taking place in this photo here? And as I see, self-awareness, yeah. Confidence. Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. Confidence and abilities. Yeah. Risk taking. Sharing. Yeah. The two kids on the stumps for sure. Looks like in the back, there's a little bit of discussion happening as well. Cooperation, explores the world and environment. With confidence. Waits for turn, takes turn. Yeah. Yeah, it does. It definitely starts to get into the social aspects as well, which we know social emotional very tied together. Awesome. Thank you for taking time for that exploring. I'm going to pull. Oops, we have 2 people in the waiting room.
I got them.
Oh, you got them. Okay, thank you. I'm going to go back to this, and again, I apologize that was not working when we did that before, but hopefully the link should work for everybody now when we do the next breakout room. And you are up, Peter.
All right. So we're going to go over the social understanding and relationship ESIPs and how those could look outside. When I was going over how to do this presentation, I couldn't get away from my own journey into teaching outside, which for me is pretty brand new. I was used to working in classrooms and using outside as gross motor learning, but not necessarily thinking of all the other ESIPs. So yeah, after 10 years of classroom teaching, I was offered a spot at teaching at the lab school, and we were doing all outside because of COVID. And so suddenly I had to reimagine how I can reach these crucial developmental areas and promote them in my students in a totally new setting. And this was a tough change. So at first, if you don't mind going to the next slide. Oh wait, actually, before you do, as I said in the beginning, I teach preschool, so 3 to 5 year olds. So some of these skills might not necessarily touch the birth to 2 year olds. But so for social responsiveness, I will be talking about identifying others' emotions and showing empathy amongst each other with building relationships. I'm going to share about how children share and participate with peers and preferred adults, as well as building relationships through their play and conversation. And then for the social skills ESIP, how children respond to and interact with one another and with preferred adults in meaningful ways, such as entering play with different strategies and inviting others to play as well. All right, now I'm ready. Okay, so when I was thinking about how this could look outside, I found that I reverted to some of my strategies that I use inside and brought them outside, such as, teachers modeling these social skills and using the cycle of teaching and learning to help students go through their awareness of these feelings and exploring all the way to questioning. And it turned out this was really helpful at first because a lot of social skills are built through interactions with teachers and other peers, of course. So I would focus on finding teachable moments within their play to promote these ESIPs and look for ways to highlight responsiveness and positive interactions. And that ended up being my main focus at the end of my school days. How can I increase or take advantage of these moments in real time that the students are using? So I'm going to explain some of these pictures and what we used to find how we use modeling and the cycle of teaching to help promote these in outdoor learning spaces or with nature and living creatures like Jenny mentioned. So in our first picture, we have one of our wonderful coworkers, Alyssa, bringing a school pet into our room where our students were really intrigued about what Zoot, our gecko, is all about. And to get towards some of this social responsiveness and understanding how others might be feeling, Alyssa talked about Zoot feeling nervous to be around so many people and what could we do to help Zoot feel more comfortable while, having all of these eyes on them and using gentle touches and talking out these feelings of how do you feel when you feel like there's too many people, if you're feeling a little unsure of yourself, what would help you? And this awareness of Zoot and Zoot having feelings kind of led into exploration of our own feelings and how peers might be feeling as well. And that later turned into conversations about, what geckos enjoy and how geckos live as well. So we were able to take it through from social emotional development into some other learning areas with this group of children. And in this second picture, we have a young girl who at the beginning of the school year would start to get pretty sad while seeing other friends get picked up before them. And we noticed that she would look for spaces to kind of hide and feel enclosed or close to people. And our student teacher began sitting with them. And one of her peers was very interested in what was going on and would ask, why is she crying? What is she feeling? Can I sit there with her? And so we used modeling to kind of bring this peer in and to engage and empathize with this student in a space where she felt most comfortable talking about these feelings. And eventually, towards the end of days, they were off running together, not in the box, but rather just outside playing. And we use this box to bring that back together. Group times in the very cold winter brings a lot of big feelings amongst our peers, and ourselves, such as being cold and what that leads to, whether it's frustration or needing our bodies to move. And so we used modeling in terms of ways to keep our body going and helping those emotions of cold and frustration turning into warmth, and what we do when we're playing and how we go about feeling that. And another way that we used modeling was really just exploration. Marie will talk a little bit about this, but I really believe that exploring your community brings a sense of ownership for these students, and a sense that they are a part of something bigger than themselves. So teachers, while going on these walks, will keep conversations going and keep students engaged about the things that they're seeing, the things that they're feeling, sharing and feeling that they are a part of something bigger than themselves, that they have the same feelings as their peers while exploring these new places, has been really, really important for my class. And after getting to the point of modeling and using this cycle of teaching to kind of lean on in the beginning, I started to realize, if you can switch the slide, thanks, Jenny, that the activities that we're playing outside are also going to be very crucial. Planning for outside are going to be crucial to their development in all domains, but also the social one. It turns out outside can be a really big space, which seems really obvious, but it wasn't necessarily when I first was planning activities. And that maybe inside the classroom, I had relied on proximity to kind of promote some of these social interactions. The children were just closer to one another. The tabletops were smaller. There wasn't as much space to go wandering and looking. So now I had to plan and scaffold opportunities for students to explore the outdoors together, and what are activities that we could do with one another. And then I could bring in those teachable moments to help scaffold those. So in the first picture on the top left, we had a nice rainy, cold day that I noticed a lot of students were seeking me, their preferred teacher, out, and we're just kind of standing there and feeling a little cold and wet. And with that uncomfortableness, so I modeled naming my feelings in the rain and asking them to do the same thing. How are they feeling? Wondering about what they might be interested in doing about this colder feeling that they were having. And the students came up with a desire to build a shelter for themselves. We had just done a school camping trip, so camping was on our mind, and we got together and came up with a plan pretty much. What do we need to get for a shelter? What do we have to do for it to cover us? And where should we put it? A lot of open-ended questions that got them to be thinking as a group as opposed to individually. And I found that to be really helpful when planning activities outside. You can see in the bottom picture, we had the snowplow made a wonderful hill, and another class started digging out a tunnel. But when the snowplow came back, it covered up one of the ends. So again, it was the children noticed that these were closed, and getting them to come together and work with one another, and promoting conversation amongst them was the most important factor in getting them to realize that they all have really similar ideas, and that keeping these social skills going and meaningful play, them having a goal, was very helpful. The picture in the middle is just their goal was to dig more dirt. That's it, as simple as that. And so we promoted them asking some preferred peers if they wanted to join them, to let one another know what their plans are, and how they wanted to go about just digging this wonderful dirt out of the hole and where they wanted to put it. And at that point, you get to move from kind of the director of play, and you get to fall back into just another playmate for them, helping their ideas be heard by one another, and reveling and pointing out when they have similar ideas, so we can all feel that sense of community. And I noticed that really helps promote social skills and conversational skills amongst them. Other ideas are just simple, toys that are outside needing to be shared. Here we've got peers both wanting the same toy. What do they need to do to work through that? And we're there to scaffold. Storytelling play is incredibly important. I have a lot of students who really enjoy big stories and telling them, and using our outdoors to go on adventures and to fall into that storytelling world has been probably my favorite activity outside. And then down beneath, just making a simple fort. Again, these activities that promote community and more than just one student at the same time seem to be where I see the most of the social development happening. And then lastly, and this is a big one that Jenny touched on a little bit, but the top is going to say, just trusting the children, especially during the risky play. When I moved to the outdoor learning, I was really excited, but also pretty intimidated about how everything might look. And when I get feeling that way, I tend to want more control over the learning. And I think that's a pretty natural response for teachers. But I noticed that the social development really started to blossom when the students were feeling trusted by me, their teacher, and then trusted by their peers around them. I think Ron Grady, he's done some Natural Start Alliance conferences, but he talks about how some children who might not be drawn to traditional dramatic play might be more interested in doing some risky play, and that opportunity for them to act out real socials or real life social situations in a bigger way, so they can learn through that. And they might not get that if you're not allowing risky play to happen and you're not trusting the children when it comes to taking their own risks. So having students be able to listen to and label their own feelings towards risky play really led them to being aware of one another's feelings towards risky play and able to generalize some of those thoughts. So here we have children climbing and going up in this first picture where they're going to absolutely leap down, just like this boy in the second picture is about to. And some of these high spaces, the children having time to listen to their own emotions will help them when they're playing with their peers and be interested in understanding how their peers might feel while playing these risky play games, I suppose. And then here we just have a group of boys who wanted to go on an adventure. Letting them wander in their neighborhood and lead our walk was really eye-opening to them, and it led to a lot of discussions amongst one another, as well as positive social behaviors with each other that led not only during the walk, but continued for the rest of their day. Here we have a boy sticking his head into the ice tunnel shown from a picture before, trying to see how far he can get his body into it. And our teacher was doing a wonderful job trusting them to know how far they should go and how far they shouldn't, and where they feel the most safe, because they could share and talk amongst each other. And then up here we have our stick play, and that sword play often comes with a lot of conversations about feeling if our body's safe, are our friends' bodies feeling safe, and how you can tell that they're feeling that way. Is it their body language? Are we listening to their words? And we can help scaffold them through those situations.
Thank you, Peter. Something that you brought up that I hadn't really thought about is the space piece outside, and how sometimes we think bigger might be better outside, but sometimes bigger is too spread out. And I'm thinking about that in the location I taught last year. Sometimes I preferred to be in the smaller space, and it wasn't for the purpose of ease of making it easier to see the kids or anything like that, how one might think I would, or why one might think I was choosing that space, but it really was just the different social interactions. Hadn't really put that together. So thank you for that insight. I'm going to go to that. We're going to move to a breakout room again, and it should be in there, the chat, it should work. It is the second picture that you will look at. And now when you're looking at that picture, it will be focused on, you'll focus the discussion on the social development domains. So I'm going to put this in. Please message me if it, or come back if something isn't working. And we'll take, why don't we just do about 5 minutes. Now that I did that, though, I can't see who's all come back. We're just waiting for everybody to come back from the breakout room, and then we will get started again. All right, we're still waiting for a few more. Welcome back, everybody, as you're coming in. I hope everything worked smoothly this time. Again, apologies for the first time. A piece of technology I was not aware of. All right. I think everybody's back. We are going to get started with Marie going through social systems. You ready, Marie? And you just tell me when you want me to move slides.
Okay. Welcome and thank you everybody for being here. I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about the different social systems, ESIPs, and how I see them manifesting in my children's play, and how I sort of try to be planful to create those moments where I can have children have those experiences and gather data on them meeting the ESIPs. Just a heads up that I organize my slides a little bit differently. This is how my brain works, so hopefully it won't be confusing, but it'll be accessible to you guys. We're going to go through the ESIPs and we're going to see a lot of different pictures, and I'm just going to talk about how I see them mapping onto them. So, Jenny, next slide is great. So I'll start off by just saying that a lot of people, when I talk about social systems, right, are like, that's the one I always forget about, which makes sense to me, right? In some ways, because I think that this is like all that we do. This is infused, like the social systems are so deeply infused to, I think, really why we're at preschool, right? When I think about why I teach preschool and what I think sort of preschool is for, I think for preschool is to socialize children, right? It's to teach them how to be part of a bigger world. And so when I think about it from that, if that's my why that I'm sort of anchoring myself in, then the social systems just sort of unfold in front of me, right? Because that's what we're doing every time we interact with children, every time we model that back and forth conversation, every time we take children out into the world, right? We're modeling for them, whether we're planful about it or not, how to be a person living in the world. And I just think that that's a gift, and that's what gets me excited about being a preschool teacher, especially when I'm beating myself up for being like, oh, Marie, you didn't do enough curriculum planning. I'm like, Marie, go be with the children, play with them, and be present with them, and they're going to learn. And that's a real gift to me as a teacher. So I'll also say that I was on the committee that helped write the social systems ESIPs in Minnesota. So if you think they're terrible, just keep that to yourself, please. Thank you. I would appreciate that. When we think about the first ESIP, the component of community, people, and relationships, I sort of thinking about it, right? I'm going to this is probably the only name I'm going to drop, Bronfenbrenner. I think about it in terms of like Bronfenbrenner's systems of interacting with children, right? And so I kind of, that makes sense to me when I'm thinking about community, people, and relationships, right? Like first, we want to focus on that internal, like helping the child answer that question, sort of who am I, and learn about who they are in the world, and then take it into the family, that really safe space for them, and then into the classroom, and then into the community, right? And so we're sort of helping weave and connect all of these things together and helping children feel valued as their full selves in our classroom communities. And so when I think about community, people, and relationships, over here on the right side here, I have some children looking at themselves in reflective surfaces. And we do a lot of that sort of just self-identification, kind of like what Peter was saying, like inside the classroom before I would have a lot of mirrors, we would do a lot of face painting, things that do come outside sometimes, but not all of the time. And so there we have Henry, just really, we were on a walk that day and he caught his reflection and he just took a lot of time staring at himself, and we were on our way somewhere else, right? But that was one of my like teacher brain moments where I was like, Marie, just because we're trying to get to the bridge, like Henry is having a moment here, right? And that was again sort of that example of like, just stop and be present in the moment. So I watched Henry watch himself for a little while, and then I just walked up and I said, what are you noticing? And he said, my hair is curly like the leaves. What? Yeah, that's a moment that I easily could have missed by saying like, oh, come on, Henry, I see that you noticed the rock, but we're walking to the river right now. And that's something that's sort of a constant part of my practice, is just like slowing down and stopping and being present with the children. And we have another student down there, Sophie, who we brought out some face paints and the mirrors, and she's really noticing some beautiful things about herself too. You can see her reaching out her hand there to touch her own hand and to map that palm onto her palm. And so providing opportunities for children just to see, like literally see themselves in the environment. And then also being present for those moments when they're noticing other things. I have a pretty diverse class this year, children with a lot of different skin tones and skin colors. And so I'll notice children, right, just pointing out like, oh, my skin is darker than yours, and being present, not avoiding those conversations because they feel a little bit thorny or a little bit difficult, but just being really matter of fact, like, yeah, I think you're noticing that that you guys have different colors of skin. Look, my skin is a little bit of a different color too. And pointing out and really valuing those differences and not shying away from those moments. On the left part of the screen over here, we have some children who are playing family. And then we have a little boy who's drawing a picture of his family with the stick in the sand up there. And so that again, family play crops up in a lot of ways in our classroom. And so me being present and playing with them and engaging in that play with them gives me some opportunities to support and scaffold that play. So I make sure that I bring in books that show all different types of families, right? And model different types of families. One of the problems that I help children negotiate sort of right away, right, is that argument over roles. Well, she wants to be a dad, but she's a girl. And I say, oh, well, anybody can decide what they want to be. Anybody gets to decide what their body is and who their body can be. Oh, this family doesn't have two dads. Did you know that some families do have two dads? It sounds like you want to be a dad and you want to be a dad. There are a lot of different ways to be a family. It sounds like today this family has two dads, right? Looking for those little ways that are really connected to the children's play, where again, they're learning how to be a part of the world, right? And if you're there to partner with them in that moment and say like, oh yes, here's what you know about the world, but I'm an adult and I know about the world too. And I'm just going to crack that door open for you, right? And I'm going to tell you that there are other ways to be in the world. That's what gets me really excited about working with children in this way, and really thinking about how can I sort of shake things up as they're building their understanding of community and identity and family. How can I get in there and kind of help them construct this bigger understanding and this bigger identity? And then down there in that picture, right, I invite the families in. This got a little tricky with COVID. We had to have some stricter rules, but when you're helping children and learn about the world, right? We know that in all of the domains, we want them to have concrete and real experiences. And so I can read all the books about different kinds of families. I can get in there and scaffold their play, but I want them to have real experiences seeing that their families are different. And so we invite families to send in pictures of themselves. We have those displayed around the environment, and we want them to have real lived experiences with the families too. Oh, look, yep, this is Jenny's family. Jenny has a mom that lives at her house. Jenny and her mom live at her house, and that's their family. Did you know that you can have 1 or 2 or 20 people in your family? Again, just kind of disrupting all of that. And then before I go on, I know I'm going to have to talk more quickly, but I just want to point out that middle picture there too, it's a little hard to see, but there's a stuffed bunny who's being served for dinner on the stump in the middle of that picture. At the table are a family whose dad hunts and provides a lot of the meat for their family through hunting. And one of the children at that table is a vegan. And so that play, right, again, being present to partner in that play and just helping children really understand that it's okay to do different things in the world and that it's okay to have different ideas of what's right and what's wrong and what's okay. That was a real eye opener for those children, because the child who was a vegan was like, but they're eating the bunny. And I said, yep, some people do eat bunnies, and it's okay that your family chooses not to. Everybody is okay. So again, just little ways that it can kind of crop up unexpectedly. I think children are really looking to you to provide those experiences and also to validate their lived experiences, especially when it doesn't maybe fit in with what some of their peers are doing or doesn't exactly match up to what some of their peers are doing. Okay, Jenny, next slide.
Yeah, and Marie, I just want to let you know, please don't rush. If it was closer to 7:50, that would be okay. We can skip
okay.
that.
Sorry, I was like, oh, I won't have anything to say, and then I get real excited about it.
Yeah, and you know what? Everybody's loving it, and this is great meat. So keep going, please.
Again, so another part of community, people, and relationships is civics. And this one, when I was like, I mean, okay, like what what does that mean for children? But when I again think of it and sort of ground it in my understanding of what's developmentally appropriate at this age, it helps me to think of it more as like, what does it mean to be part of a group, right? Like when I think about civics. And like what Peter was saying, right? What does it mean to be part of a group, and how do you connect to your community? Those two things are very much a part of this for me. And so in the middle there, I have voting. We do some voting in our class, again, about experiences that the children are actually going to have. So that's not a great picture, but it says vote on which book to read at large group. And then I have a picture of Lola goes to the library, and I'm not sure what the other book was, right? But children could put their picture next to which book they wanted to read. And then I brought that whiteboard to large group, and we counted up that more children had voted for the other book. And then before we read that book, we had to have a discussion, going back to the social and emotional stuff that Jenny and Peter were talking about, right? About what it felt like when your choice didn't get picked, and how it was okay to have big feelings or to feel upset. Of course, it's okay to feel upset that your choice didn't get picked. But sometimes when you're part of a larger group and you ask everybody in the group, you have to go with what the group decides. And that's a really hard thing for children to learn. Right? It's a really hard thing. And we ask them to practice it without naming it in a million different ways. When we ask them to share toys, especially coming out of the pandemic, right? I think a lot of children are just like, what are you talking about? Share toys. Like, I like that truck. I've never shared a toy in my life. Right. And so just that mapping on of like, yep, we still really value your feelings. We value your voice, but also you don't get what you want right now. And that's a hard thing. It's a hard thing and a big thing, and it needs some space. We also do a lot of voting. I was talking to Sheila about, I was like, I don't have any pictures from recently, because recently we've been doing a lot of casual voting where I'll ask children to raise their hands now that my children are sort of used to the process of voting. So which playground should we go to today? Should we go to Peter's playground? That's what we call one of the back playgrounds. Or should we go to the triangle playground? And then we'll vote. And then we'll go to the one that the group decides, and then I'll spend some time, right, comforting the children who didn't get their vote. Their vote wasn't the majority. We also try to take advantage of just connections to the community. So up there you see a pre-pandemic picture. I love that picture. Oz is just leaning on the counter like he's been coming to the post office his whole life, right? We go out and we visit people in our community. So this is the local post office here in Dinkytown. We'd been writing letters a lot in class, and we had gotten a letter from one of the children who had been on vacation. And so we all packed up and walked over to the post office, and the children got to ask him some questions about his work. Oh, I see a note. Also, great ways to incorporate math. Yes, absolutely. On the left here, it's hard to see because everything is pale white in these Minnesota winters, but there's a recycling truck driving back past the fence, and two of my children noticed the recycling truck and asked about it. And so I told them what it was, and I asked them if they knew what recycling was. Alice down there in the red coat was like, "It's when you use something again." Okay, that's a good place to start. And so she turned her sled into a recycling truck and was picking up she and her her co-worker there were picking up and collecting all of the jewels, and they took them to a recycling plant, and they sorted some out and threw some in one corner of the playground that ended up being the dump. Not something I had planned to have happen that day, but again, I think being present in the moment and holding this idea of like, okay, what do I want the children to be learning and excited and curious about, and what do I know is developmentally appropriate for them right now? I think holding those things in your mind allows you to really be present in the moment and capitalize on some of these experiences. And then over here on the right, one of my favorite pictures, this is from a couple of years ago, but helping children understand rules, right? So we ask children, I think that's part of civics, rules at home and at school and the community, and how they navigate those differences. The picture of the children in the corner right there, we allow stick fighting at our school, the children, but there are some safety rules around it. And so you'll see the little guy on the left there, who's a little bit shorter than the other children. He was younger than the other children. He was 3, and the other children were 4 and 5. The older children had a lot of experience stick fighting, and Henrik, the younger guy, and I had been watching for a long time. He was watching how they were safe with each other. He was watching how they talked to each other, and he felt like he was ready to play sticks with them. But right before this picture was taken, he had hit one of the big boys on the knee with the stick. And they took over the rule explaining and told him things that I didn't know, right? One of the little boys there, Andy, was like, no, you can't hold the stick down low or you can't control it. You have to put your hands up high on the stick, otherwise you're going to hurt me again. And Henrik was like, okay, right? Taking in these lessons from the big boys that he was not hearing from me, and rules that I didn't know. I don't stick fight that much, right? But helping children understand the rules that apply in different places, and then giving them ownership over those rules, I think is a really powerful way to help them understand how to be in community with each other. Thank you. Change over time. Another one that I was like, how do we teach children about history? And then brought in my lens of child development, and really sort of broke it down. So we'll talk about the 2 domains here: change over time, personal history, and family narratives. Again, what I tried to do here was just think about this in terms of the personal experiences that the children had, right? And so thinking about this idea of like grandpa going fishing, that's where that middle picture up top comes from. It was a family culture thing. And one of the children in our classroom had gone fishing with her grandpa and had come back and had had such a wonderful time on that trip that her life was sort of divided into before I went fishing with grandpa and after I went fishing with grandpa, right? Not something that I would have mapped out onto my own personal timeline, but by really paying attention to what she was talking about and giving her that time and space, it turned into a whole curriculum, because she just kept talking about it so much at school that we built our some fishing curriculum off of that. So I put out some sticks and some yarn and the children made their own fishing poles. And Madeline, the child who had gone fishing with her grandpa, really took some ownership and excitement over guiding her children through that role, or through that experience. On the right, we have children playing in the boat, sort of with the same idea. Family vacations are often really significant for children. And so the birth of an older sibling or a child, we hear children talk about time in relation to being older or younger than their siblings. That's something that's really important to them. And so helping them map out time that way and help sort of build this understanding that things change over time. Again, I think what can get lost here is that we have such an adult understanding of it. It can be hard to pull ourselves back, right? To put ourselves back in children's shoes and to remember that when a child says, "Oh, Marie, I went to my grandma's house, my grandma's yellow house yesterday," that could have happened 3 years ago, right? We're just helping them build their understanding. And one of the ways that they start is by stringing together a series of personal events. And then another way too is just by helping them reflect and remember and have experiences with the same space in different seasons. And that to me has been one of the real gifts of nature preschool, and a really direct connection to this idea of change over time. When children are living and playing outside, right, when they're having all these experiences outside, then they're noticing that the playground and play spaces are changing. And so over here, I just have a picture of our old playground, but that's us using the hill for sledding one day, and then using the sort of same space in the fall for a giant leaf pile, right? And so my children in class would say like, "Oh, remember when we had the leaf pile? The leaf pile will come again next year." Yep, that's fall. We had the leaves in the fall. We'll have the leaf pile again next year. Next slide, please. Thanks, Jenny. Personal history and family connections. Thank you. The next idea, when we think about the environment, conservation, and physical characteristics of a community, the physical characteristics of a community, I think about them the same way that I do about change over time, right? What are not necessarily the important physical characteristics that I might think are important and tell children about, but what's important in the children's lives, right? And how can I help them build their understanding of community through those direct experiences? And that really stands out to me with down there, you'll see some of my children from a few years ago holding their hands up to the warming vents, right? So that first year after COVID, we moved entirely outdoors and only went inside for the bathroom. We were also on an active construction site, and it was a real trip. It was a real trip. And we were outside all the time, even when it didn't feel really great to be outside. So what became really important to my children were the warming spots that we found around campus, right? And we found 2 really significant ones that were close to us, that were big and warm enough, the warming vents, we called them, that the children knew where they were, and we would plan our daily walks and our daily excursions into the community around those sites. "Oh, Marie, we have to go here because then we're not too far from the warming site." So again, just planning significant events. And I have some other pictures along those lines too. So going to the bridges, over the trains. In our new school here, that's become a really important part of us understanding our community. And then at our last school too, we were close to there was a river nearby. It's the Mississippi River, in case you've never heard of it. So we would often go down to the pedestrian bridge over the Mississippi River. Again, just significant things in the children's environment. The climbing trees, you'll see our 6 little monkeys climbing in a tree over there. And then our rain barrels. When we talk about environmental and environment and conservation, I have sort of that picture up, and then there's a picture of children picking up toys. How do we take care of the environment that we live in, right? Both the natural environment, how do we talk about water conservation, being careful with the animals that we care for, and also our physical, like the toys and things that we bring into that environment. What is cleanup time for? So we can all work together and partner together to clean up and take care of our resources. Thanks, Jenny. Yeah. And then this one, child begins to understand basic economic principles. Um, I'll tell you that I wrestle with this one sometimes until I bring it back down to sharing. Peter's laughing because I could go on like an anti-capitalist rant here, but I won't because we don't have the time for it. So I'll just say that I like to teach my children and create opportunities for my children to share toys and resources with each other, and also just to marvel at the natural world. And so I have a couple of pictures here. When we think about economic reasoning, anchoring it in that idea of one, like I said, sharing toys, something we're all practicing in every way with our young students. And then two, this idea of wants versus needs, right? What do you want and what do you need? A difficult thing to talk about with a child who is, carrying all 16 of the trains that you have in your classroom. Maybe that's not the time for that conversation. It helps me to anchor it in taking care of animals, right? The children are really excited to take care of our class pets. Boxy the turtle is up there on the right hand of the screen. And so one of the things that we talk about sort of the first day, our first day as a classroom community, is these pets are our responsibility and they're part of our class. How do we take care of them? What do pets need? What does this turtle need to stay alive? Oh, he needs food. What does he eat? Oh, he needs water, right? How do we get him water and shelter? And so building on that, sort of creating that solid foundation and understanding of wants versus needs, I think is just sort of a foundation for later and sort of more complex understanding of economic reasoning. You'll see up in the corner there too, one of my students we hatched some chicks in our classroom, so we brought them outside to feed them some leaves. And there's Sheila, our director, is doing some gardening with children. Gardening is another way for us to care for other things and to talk about what we need to do and what plants need. And what they don't need. Again, just that caretaking aspect. And then two, my children do practice some capitalists, right? Some capitalism. We got some children, I think you guys will appreciate this. The one in the picture with the keyboards there, one of my students had set up a pine cone store. You'll notice, thank you, that she is in a pine grove. Yes, but children came to her and traded her leaves for her pine cone inventory. Okay, all right, sounds good. And then we have some children in the middle there who set up an ice cream shop. That's always a popular one during the summer. Or I'm sorry, during the summer, during the winter. We have a lot of ice cream shops going on. So next slide. And then this is the last piece I'll talk about. And you'll notice I don't have any pictures of the children using technology. A lot of the technology honestly comes from my phone. Hard to take a picture of that when the children are using it. And so I just wanted to share some of the things that I do use with the children. My goal when I think about using technology in a nature-based environment is that I want to model that technology is a tool that can support our lived experiences, right? And so I try to model technology as a resource, which brings me to what I have up here. So this idea, I love the Decora Eagle Cam, right? We watch the Decora Eagle Cam in the springtime. It's especially exciting when they lay their eggs. Fair warning, one time when I was in the classroom, we would just have it up on our computer in the spring. And one time I looked over and the children were gathered around and there was a dead bunny leg, like a very recognizable dead bunny leg and like head that the eagle had brought over and was feeding to the chicks. Okay, so then that was that day's curriculum. Here we go. There's a bear cam that's pretty fun when you talk about hibernation or how to keep warm. There are a couple of live bear cams, and they have some hibernation is not always thrilling, so they have some clips that you can also go to if you and your children want to look at them rolling around and moving around. I use the Picture This plant identification app. That's really useful when children are asking me about what different plants are, or when we're finding new plants and exploring them and the children want to ask if they can touch it. We look them up on the plant to make sure that they're safe. And then Google Maps. This has been a pretty recent shift, right? But I used to do mapping with my children by getting out like atlases, and I'd like lay them out and I'd be like, oh, this is how. The last time I did that, the children in my class were like, what are you talking? I've never seen that before in my life. It's like, oh yeah, because most of your families are using Google Maps. And so now I use Google Maps on my phone, and sometimes I'll also just print out the Google map of our immediate neighborhood, and we'll add on our own like significant things that we see in the neighborhood. Thank you for listening to me talk about these.
Yeah, Marie, thank you. I have to say, you definitely had the harder one of the three of us, and I think that you were able to really put this into help us see how you can put these into practice. And I think you were an awesome person to be able to help write this section of the ESIP. So thank you for sharing that. I want to pull up this last one. I just want to take 4 minutes, but we're not going to do a breakout room. So I'm actually going to go out a second and share a different screen. Here we go. Right here. So this photo, I'd love for you to just take a look at and think about, out of all three of the domains, well, I guess social emotional kind of counts as one domain, but and social systems, what things are you, which subcomponents are you seeing here, and what are kids kind of getting out of this time? And you can either unmute or put it in the chat. And I know we'll probably see things beyond these subcomponents, but just kind of stick to the social, emotional, and social systems here when you're sharing. Community, working together, interactions. Building relationships, cooperative play. Describes different roles of people in the community, construction, creating a community, interactions, taking turns, civics, respecting the cones, working together, self-discovery, change over time, interaction, talking about what they're finding as they're digging, having different roles and working together, different roles. And this, somebody mentioned change over time. This was a work in progress whole. Initiates, joins, and sustains cooperative play and conversations with others. Sometimes too, there's things that you might not know as you're looking at a photo. The little guy with the green hat had some really struggled with self-regulation, and he's actually under his jacket he is wearing a hug vest, which helped with his sensory input needs, and he loved wearing it, one, because he did notice a difference. He said it helped him be able to think better. He would use those words, which was amazing, and he would even say tighter when we're putting it on him. And he called it his worker vest. And so really thinking like he really was in that role, and for him to be in the position that he was in right now was just pretty amazing. The wheelbarrow and shovels count as technology, just not the digital variety. Shows increasing ability to stop and think before acting, for sure, especially with you'll see the metal shovels involved there too. I love the metal shovels. I do get a little worried about the use of them when the hole is getting deeper, because as you can see, some heads are lower than others. And so it's really important to have an adult close by with that. A couple of the other kids in this particular picture that of course you wouldn't know as an onlooker hadn't done as much socializing with other kids. But there is just something about a big project like this that draws kids in, that taking turns too, because we don't have enough shovels for everybody. And as you can see, the hole isn't huge either. And even with the measuring tape. Well, thank you. I'm going to stop sharing. Oh, weighted vests and blankets are great for so many kids. Yeah, they have been amazing once I knew more about them and that strong sensory input need and how that can really help. Okay, let me just go to this one. Sorry, I'm fighting some allergies, so if you hear my stuff snuffles a little bit. So to get, so this is obviously we've been on here since 6:30, so it's only an hour and a half time for you to get your 2 hours of CEUs. You'll need to go to the survey that Kelly just shared in the link, and what you will do for your kind of last 30 minutes, it doesn't have to happen tonight. It's just whenever you submit the survey, you're going to choose one of the domains in the ESEPS, emotional, social, or social systems development. And for each subcomponent in that domain, come up with 2 activities you can do with the students in your program related to nature-based learning, or that supports. I worded that funny. Maybe I'm just not getting it right now, but I think you know what I mean. Learning that supports nature-based learning. So really looking at it specific to your program. You got to see lots of examples from the University of Minnesota Laboratory School. Today you saw some of mine from Tamarack Nature Center and a lot of mine from Stillwater ECFE. So really thinking about how would this look in your outdoor space, in your environment that you have. And then you'll submit that when you fill out the survey for the webinar. If you have any questions regarding that, I see Kelly's email here. I'm just going to pause on the slide for a minute so you can take a picture of the slide if that is something that you want to make sure you get the credits for.
Jenny, can I just say something quick about this?
Yeah, please do.
A lot of times when people are submitting the survey, they're not going to the very end of the survey and hitting submit. So if you make sure when you're doing this that you fill out all the different questions, there's a question in there that's going to ask you to put in your activities right in the survey, so you can just type them in. But then make sure at the end that you do go through the whole thing. If you are also somebody who wants this on your develop record, there will be a question that asks you to submit your develop number and your email. So make sure you do that before you hit submit. And if you need the certificate of participation, like if you're in a school district and you need to turn that in to your school district folks, that is in the survey as well. You download it from the survey and then make sure you click back to the survey and click submit. That way it's just completed. I get a lot of them a lot of times that say in progress. And so then I'm not sure if people have actually gotten what they needed out of it or not. So that's just helpful. But if you have any questions, feel free to email me.
Kelly, thank you for all that and for all the work that you've put into to get these trainings and develop. I know, especially if you're a home childcare provider or working at a smaller center, those develop hours are pretty critical. Those of us in school districts tend to get quite a bit already through our schools, but it just super useful. Last thing too, if you need or want to get in touch with either myself, Marie, or Peter, our emails are here. Sheila Williams-Ridge and Anna Dutke are also on this call tonight. They have been working with me with the MDE Outdoor Learning Project. And again, if you go on to the website, you'll be able to see a lot of other resources that we've put together for this.
Thank you for watching. For more information and resources, visit the Outdoor and Nature-Based Learning webpage at dcyf.mn.gov. You can also scan the QR code to go directly to the website. For develop users, just a reminder that you should have reviewed the early childhood indicators of progress as part of your develop requirement. If you need a copy of them, you can download them from the develop course description for this course under the learning objectives. There's a link there, or you can search them in Google. They are posted on the DCYF website. When you finish the webinar, you can email kelly.kazik@state.mn.us and request the evaluation of learning survey. The webinar event can be added to your learning record once your survey is received and reviewed. And if you only need a clock hour form, you can email kelly.kazik@state.mn.us and request the evaluation of learning survey. If you have any questions or would like a copy of the slides, please email kelly.kazik@state.mn.us. Thank you and have a good day.